I'm going to give you guys a heads up. You'll see in the corner of your screen that I'm recording the call for a couple of reasons. Brad and Eric and myself have been dubbed with the honor of orchestrating our next mastermind in person. And that's going to be in Boston, Massachusetts at the end of April. And if it's okay, Eric, I'm going to actually throw out the tentative date.
Yeah, for sure.
We just need to lock down a venue, but we're looking at Thursday, April 27th for the day event. And then what we're trying to figure out is when we're going to do the happy hour, if it's going to be the night before like they did in Washington, D.C. So that would be Wednesday the 26th, or if it'll be right after, which would be that same day, the 27th. So we'll have more details on that very soon. Just to orient you guys around the call, if you haven't been on the call for a while, or if you're not familiar with why we're doing this, back in 2015, who's a 30 under 30 from Michigan, suggested that we get on a monthly conference call. And I volunteered and took the ball and ran with it. And so what we do is we've been on, I think this is about our 25th or 26th call now. And a lot of times we talk about real estate best practices. Other times we just work to get our group together and share ideas. Today, the main topic for our call is going to be our 30 under 30 summit in Boston. And if you look, there's a chat. If you're on your mobile device, you're going to have to go towards the bottom of your screen. If you click on the bottom of your screen there, you'll see some options where you can swipe left or swipe right and see different people speaking. You can also click that chat box, and I've uploaded a link to my blog where we've got this agenda that we're going to be going through. So if you guys would click on the link at some point, that's what we're going to be following with. But I'm going to try to, if possible, share my screen. We'll see what happens here. I've never done this before, so if the call terminates, I apologize for that. Let's see here. But Zoom is pretty slick. Can you guys see that? All right, perfect. So Eric, if you don't mind, since you put this together, I certainly don't want to take all the credit for this. Eric is the one who's really been putting this event together with Elad Bushari. Sorry if I butchered Elad's name. But since they're in Boston and since they're in the local city there, they're the ones that are coordinating the event. And Eric, if you want to go ahead, we'll go through the agenda and just some different things that I'm thinking about, as well as what Brad is thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who have been to the events, the last one in DC, and then prior to that, there was a summit in Chicago. Generally, it's 30 under 30 folks, past honorees that come together. Last year, I know Harrison, you were a finalist at that point and ended up being an honoree afterwards. But we anticipate between 75 and 100 based on the Facebook feedback, 30 under 30 honorees to attend. We're also going to put it out there to the finalists, because at this point we will have finalists announced. And for the first time ever, we're thinking about opening it up to the public, other realtors from around Boston, or regionally or even nationally. To all the ticket prices will be free for 30 under 30 honorees, but for anyone else that would attend, we would be charging them a slight fee to offset some of the cost for that extra group of people. Let's see. We're looking at, as Kyle mentioned, the 27th of April, and then either doing the 30 under 30 networking event the night prior or the night of, depending on the interaction with local realtors and the interest in terms of tickets. I think that we could end up doing a secondary, post-event type networking or socializing hour, and it would also depend on sponsorships. That's what I'm working on now. We have a couple venues in mind, but the pricing here is obviously a little bit high. So we're trying to figure out sponsorships in order to offset some of those costs. Cutco, Liberty Mutual, and a handful of others have already expressed interest. And now we're looking for, larger scale sponsors to take on some of the other aspects of the event. In the past, we've done longer style presentations. At DC, we were running between 30 minutes and 45 minutes, if I remember correctly. This year, we're focused on shorter, like TED style talks, 15 to 25 minute speakers who hammer on one point, and then 5-10 minute break in between, and we'll roll on into the next speaker. So we'll have a ton of content. We've already been pursuing people to speak. We have a bunch of interest from past honorees, and then also folks like Jimmy Mackin from Curator, Seth Price from Playster, who's about to release a book. Those two have already expressed interest in either keynoting or participating in one of these TED-style talks. So we should have a lot of fantastic content for the folks that do attend. Kyle, do you want me to touch on anything else, or is that kind of the big summary?
No, I think you've covered it. I would say that for sure, if there's anybody on this call right now that wants to volunteer for speaking, we look at it like the people who join us on the mastermind call, and I don't know, everybody can't always join us, but the people who join us, we would love to cherry pick some topics. Koki, I know that you've presented before, and I don't know if you can make the event, but I'd love to see if you'd be able to speak. And then any others that have a heart for speaking about a certain event, a certain topic that you think our alumni group really needs to hear. That's probably the biggest thing that we're looking for right now outside of sponsorships. Sponsorships, Eric is really taking a pretty heavy weight there, and we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that this event is a successful one. We've got a pretty high bar to get over because Brandon and Bo and Koki and the others in Washington, D.C. did a phenomenal job last spring. So that would probably be my my question for Harrison and Koki, since you guys were both in that involved in that location last year. Is there any suggestions that you would have for Eric specifically, being local, and then also for Brad and I who are helping him remotely? And what I'll do is I'll unmute you, Koki, and Harrison, to see if you guys can pitch in.
Sure. Yeah, I'll chime in on a couple of the points that Eric mentioned. One being sponsorship, and then also the attendees as well. So we actually did have attendees at the event last year that were not honorees, and quite frankly, it actually helped with just making it more of a full room and full event, because we only had, I think, 20 to 30 some honorees, and many of those were local honorees. So absolutely, I would open it up to the public there, and certainly charge a fee, for the event. And then for sponsorships, you just got to think about, who's going to benefit from having some of the top minds in real estate from across the country. So it's a little different, if it was just a local event where all the agents were there from Boston, and of course you got your lenders and title folks who would be all over that. I still think that they're definitely an option. You just might not get the same kind of draw that you'll get, since it's agents from across the U.S. and you got to bang the phones. It's just like prospecting for new business. You call a lot of people, make those connections, and then follow up with the sponsorship information versus sending out the emails first and then calling. And it's great to have contacts wherever it is that you're trying to reach out to. Cutco is always a great supporter. They don't contribute a huge amount, and I'm looking at the sponsorship numbers you guys have there. The venue is going to be the big driver for how much money that you guys need for the event. And I can't remember the cost last year for the event we had, or for the venue rather. I think Ansley handled that piece of it.
Koki, fortunately, we got from Brandon Green, we got Amber, his teammate. She gave us the entire budget.
Perfect.
And all of that. So we've got those numbers. Perfect.
All right. So then you guys have all that information. Yeah, I think sponsorship is kind of like the biggest thing, because you don't want to have any issues with financing the event. Harrison, you got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I can say as an attendee last year, I found a lot of value out of everything that was presented. I didn't help at all really with the organizing, because I was still a finalist. But I think if you are looking at who's going to sponsor, I think back to the YPN National Retreat and kind of the model they had there with looking at some of the national brokerage brands. I know Coldwell Banker did a lot at that one. And I think that would be an appeal if there's somebody from one of the bigger large brokerage brands that would probably want to write a check to get in front of folks of this caliber. But yeah, I think if you are opening it up to outside the honoree pool, that's going to be big too for just supplementing revenue. And it provided a lot of value with the conversation and feedback that was given. So I'm down. I think it's going to be awesome. And in terms of, whatever we can do to help from down here, I'll think about, and maybe checking with Rob Reuter, who does all the YPN national stuff. That would be a great, resource to check on, like, because it's a similar vibe, right? Getting people from different places to come here, and who is willing to write the check and can get some kind of value out of people coming from.
Yeah.
It's a great point, Harrison. I actually was just in the process of sending a text message to Rob. He had, and I can't remember if it was Brad or if it was Eric. It certainly wasn't me. Someone came up with the idea of maybe Realtor Magazine would sponsor our event. Maybe there's issues with that, maybe there's not. So we just asked and said, would it be possible? And obviously last week was the deadline for submission for this year's application. So they've been running around with their hair on fire, but Rob said that he would get back to me, and I just sent him a text message because it's been about a week just to see if they were willing to do it. So we'll see. Certainly we can learn some things from the YPN. I think that's a big point there. So we'll write that down.
Yeah, I think if I could add something, I think the sponsorships, we're not trying to make money on this, obviously. We just want to break even. Mm-hmm. I think my goal is to have a just kick-ass time that we all can get back together and learn from each other and not have to pay dearly for it. Opening it up for maybe some local YPN chapters in the Northeast region is kind of the point behind that. We've talked about too, like the TED Talk part is just like, everybody take 20 minutes or whoever wants to talk and talk about different things. Cause gosh knows you've got people that are self-practitioners. You've got people that just started out in the business, and we've got people that have been 30 or 30s for 15 years that are running companies like, Bo and them and Rogers. So we've got this great facet going. So we're still working on if we're going to do breakouts based on where you are at in your business. I think one thing we should touch on for the new guys is what to expect in the next year, how to maximize if you do become a 30 under 30. Because that's always the question they throw on the Facebook page is, hey, I just got awarded this. What do I do with it? So I know what I wish I would have done at this point. So I think we can help them. And then if we get these 50 honorees that chime in and they're excited about maybe being in the magazine top 30, they'll fly their ass up there to Boston and hang out with us. So I think we'll, have a lot better turnout that way. So we're not looking to start a nonprofit and keep this money for next year. Although that's what we would do if we got enough money, we would roll it over. But we're not trying to get all that, corporate on it, that we have to figure all this funding source and that. But we have some good corporate sponsors, I think, that we can work out. And Koki, I want to ask you, what was the feedback last year doing the happy hour the night before the event, or would you recommend doing the night of the event?
Yeah. So feedback I got last year, I mean, people seem to like coming in early, and having that night or afternoon to, not only enjoy the happy hour event and networking with all of us, but also just, touring the city as well. And then the following day, it's just, you bang out the conference that day, and then you can fly out, in the evening. So I think last year it worked. I'm not sure if it's gonna be the best fit, for Boston or not, but it seemed to work pretty well.
Cool.
I had voiced that also on several of our conference calls that I liked almost having a reason to get in the night before, so you didn't have to fiddle with any flight delays or anything like that. So I'm hopeful that we can arrange that and make it work. If we have the event on April 27th, then that happy hour would be on the 26th. And I felt like that gave us an opportunity to really mingle. And as a speaker, I didn't want to have to, I didn't want to be distracted by thinking about what I would say. And so that day before gave me an opportunity to really get to know everybody, which was good. I think that was helpful.
Just as a quick aside,
yeah, go ahead, Eric.
I think it's going to be really important for this group on the mastermind to really kind of, if you're planning on attending, to hype the event within the Facebook group, but also tell folks in your offices, and folks in your community about it, to try and get more folks, especially 30 under 30, to come up this way. The more people we have, the more effective and the better the event will be. So, I put it on everyone here to kind of really hype it up and do that within your own community.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's I'm sometimes a shameless promoter, and I think as realtors we're all that way. But I think it's really important to, if you're going to go to the event, make sure that people know about it in your community as well as obviously in your office. Some of the idea, and I'd love to, I'm going to unmute everybody here, and so if you've got something that you'd like to say, please go ahead and do that. What I really would love to hear is what type of topics we need to cover. We've got some ideas in the Facebook group, but I don't expect that that's a perfect list of everybody. So if you want, raise your hand, start talking, and just let me know what your thoughts are on topics to cover.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, guys.
I think one thing that no matter who talks on what, we're going to lay out specific stuff that we're going to have key takeaways for everybody. So every presenter, part of your role is going to be whatever you're talking about. You got to have some action steps that people can literally take with them. So if you're talking about video, like literally, if you're just getting started, here's step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So last year was awesome. There's a lot of information. I don't take great notes. So I'm going to put that on people that if you're going to speak, then give some detailed instruction. Nothing like paragraphs, but just I think we need to have takeaways for people.
I think that's a great point. And what else have you guys found effective in presentations that you felt like really resonated with you, either from a notes packet or a program guide? I remember last year we got a brief packet. It was thorough, but it wasn't also overly detailed. And sometimes that can create, sometimes it's good, and other times it can create an extra step that the planners have to put together. So what are your guys' thoughts about that? Does that matter as you're getting a program to look at?
You know, I think
No, go ahead.
One thing so we've done a ton of masterminding with the Keller Williams family. And one thing that really helps us is we typically get, for our top 100 group, we get like a list of questions ahead of time to have answers prepared. And if there are agents coming that maybe aren't as used to that format, I think if you can kind of give some framework around what they need to have prepared or to be expecting, I think that probably would help facilitate a little bit better. Like some of the examples of that would be like, you know, obviously what are your numbers and where do you want to go? Like where are your goals? And then like some of the big things that we've talked about recently that have actually been really cool, I think for 30 under 30 especially, is like, what are you doing topic wise? Like, what are you doing to build wealth? What are you doing to actually build your business, not just to like sales, but also what are you doing to build business? Is it ancillary businesses like insurance or property management or brokerages, or like, are you just focusing on just barely getting in the business? And are you like at the sales, like building a sales business or building a sales team or building businesses? Like, where are you in your life cycle? The other thing I think that might be helpful with that is maybe to even pair up based on where people are in their level. I've seen some agents get overwhelmed if they're brand new in the business and then you're sitting next to Bowman Keaty. Like, that's kind of intimidating. So maybe trying to get a feel for the attendees, where they are in their business cycle, so we can help make the mastermind as productive as possible for them.
So the question then, so talk about maybe doing breakouts. So we're going to try and keep this thing as short as possible, but effective. Cool. But right. So we did the breakout last year, and it's like anybody does more than 300 transactions, I think is where we stopped it. And there's 4 of us in the room.
Right.
So what would you see? Because Keller Williams is awesome at this and you a lot more experience. So how would you see those breakouts go?
I think the first thing I would do is on the attendee list, I would ask for a couple, just like a very few simple questions of like sales volume, sales numbers, number of business, like number of people. Cause you may have some broker owners that don't do any sales, but own an entire brokerage, right? So like just try to maybe ask 2 or 3 leading questions to where you can get an idea ahead of time of the attendee list. And then that way you can strategically break it out. Like I know in Texas, our price point's a lot lower than it is in Boston. So your sales volume is going to be skewed based on that. I think where Gary typically knocks it off for his mastermind is right around 200 units, or I think it's right around 70 million in volume. He does both. So that way, if you've got somebody like coming in from California that's doing luxury, they're going to be a different business model than somebody that's cranking out 500 sales, in North Dakota. But ultimately, they're going to have a similar talk. So I think that if you could do volume and number of transactions, you're probably going to get both knocked out, or you may have more in the room with you than Brad. Just, letting it out.
So we had a thought too. What if we literally split the whole entire group into 2 parts?
Yeah.
And it's people that are actual practitioners, and then people that are team leads, owners, brokers. So that way we're speaking to
the same language.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. I think, I don't know that it really matters how you break it up. I think you're on the right path though, of just doing it to where people can relate and have a similar productive language where they're walking out feeling like they got value. And it sounds like y'all did a great job with that in DC. And then I love, someone mentioned the TED Talk style for the shorter comments. I can see if I can get y'all access to, we've started something called Red Talks, which is basically exactly what you're asking about. I'll see if I can get some links and send them to you guys. That might be helpful to take a look for some formats that, like, one was on lead generation and the other one's been on like how to maximize productivity in your real estate day, like different topics, but they took like one specific topic and then dug really deep on that for 10 or 15 minutes. And those have been super cool with great takeaways.
Let me throw out one more idea too. So say we did the TED Talks in the morning and through lunch, and then what if we literally had like roundtable breakouts? So if you want to go talk about commercial anything, Kyle's sitting there. If you want to go talk about team creation or whatever, whoever's sitting there, and you can pop around every 5 minutes, 10 minutes and ask your questions one-on-one rather than just being spoken to aspects.
I like that.
I think anytime you can facilitate conversation versus just presentation, it's awesome. It helps a lot.
Cool.
One point of feedback I'd have or idea is I am curious to hear about the broker owner, huge business folks, as well as the folks that are similar to me too. So if it makes sense structurally within the day, maybe have like some of your titans, if you will, up front. And then there's something that kind of identifies you by your unit, production, whatever we want to say, that can either direct you to the breakouts or to the smaller sub-talks for specific topics that pertain to your actionable stuff right now. But I love hearing from the, guys that have started from where, I am and are running a whole huge operation now too.
I'm almost wondering if we could set it up where the first half of the day, the group, similar to what we did in DC, the group is kind of all mixed, but we still have two different groups, but a mixed bag at the beginning. And then the second half of the day, we break into the leader versus practitioner type setup and do more focused TED Talks in the afternoon. And then either a keynote in the morning at lunch or at the end of the event to kind of wrap things up, similar to what we did in DC. What do people think about that?
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I don't see us doing panels this year. I mean, I think they're great. I sit on them quite often, but I don't feel like this is more, I want to be face-to-face. Like, Koki, how do you do this? Like, tell me about it and go from there. If people agree with that, I think that's what we'll do.
I tend to agree with that also. And as we've been on the call, I've been getting some text messages from Rob in Chicago. Koki, I'm going to unmute you here. Rob had asked, he needs an honest number of how many 30s attended the event in DC. Did you say about 20 honorees?
Honest? Like we're going to lie to him?
I don't know. I mean, you know what? I'm going to share this recording so you can see it, Rob.
You think there's so many political jokes right now. I think we had like 20 to 30, right?
Alternative facts, 500.
I can go through the attendee list, but I'm pretty sure it was between 20 and 30.
All right.
About, I think it was like 70 people total. That sound right, Brad?
Yeah, that's right. I think that's where we can get them from both ways and say we're going to really push this to the YPNs of Boston or Massachusetts because that should tickle his fancy as well. So he wants to do a little more. And I think Realtor Magazine needs to jump in on this and at least document it, whether they're going to sponsor it or not. I mean, this is their baby. We're growing up. Like, we're taking the reins from them and doing it.
Right. And I also think
Eric,
that
sorry to interrupt you just because I'm texting with Rob right now. What's our goal for the Boston event? Because I don't want to commit you to a number. You're probably going to be the one.
I mean, I have us down. I'm hoping for between 200 and 300. Based on the interest in 30s in the Facebook group, we already had 60 people who have basically said, I'm in. Obviously, like, that's hit or miss. But I think if we can get that many 30s, that will lead to more buy-in from these other agents to show up and want to learn from them. So that's how I'm kind of coming up with that number. I'm like, okay, for every 30 that we have, 2 other people maybe jump on board because they're interested in it. I know that I already have out of my office no less than 10 or 15 people who have basically committed to come to this. Just on preliminary conversations. Elad and Andrea and I are meeting on Monday, and I know that Elad's office will support this wholeheartedly as well. So just with that group alone, you're looking at 25 in addition to the 30s, plus opening it up to the YPNs. I think it's huge.
Do you think that Mar and those guys would want to jump in as a spot? Like I could Northeast Region CRS, which I'm up there once every 6 months talking. They might want to jump in as a CRS event, but I don't know if we want to make it that big because
Right.
they'd love to bring the stuff to their people and piggyback it. But I mean, I don't want to get away from our intent, but also
I'd be looking more at the local level. So GBAR and then the North Shore Association of Realtors. Those are kind of the local ones. And then MAR, of course, as well. I think that all of their YPNs, I know their YPN chairs all fairly well. I think they would all jump on board in this, with like full force if we put it out there to them as an initiative for their groups. They're always looking for stuff like this to do. And this is kind of easy because it's done for them. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
And I'll have an opportunity later in February. I'm speaking at our Big Keller Williams event in Vegas, family reunion. I'm on a breakout panel discussion on 30 under 30 and like what it meant and what the path has been. So if we've got the date set, we'll be in front of 800-900 people in a room to talk about it. So I can definitely plug it there too. And another thing my wife taught me from event planning in general is maybe we say like there are X amount of seats. And that's something I could say on stage to create that buzz. There is a waiting list that we're going to open up, but it's going to depend on, just a way to drive interest and engagement.
Well, and that was kind of my plan. Is just say like we're based on the venue size, we're opening it to this many additional people, and that's kind of we cap it at that, and then we do exactly what you said, Harrison, and just say we do have waiting list tickets available. Please contact XYZ and figure it out that way.
Yeah, I think we need to figure out once we figure out our costs, just open that many tickets because I don't want to turn off the other 30 under 30s from being like this is just a circus to like I want to go hang out with y'all and talk and not have to deal with 200 people that just started their first listing appointment. So I think I want to be very conscious of being sort of exclusive so we don't turn ourselves off from wanting to do this next year.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
You bring up an interesting point, Brad. How do we do that? How do we make it so that we've got, thoroughbreds running with thoroughbreds, and you obviously want to have an aspect of it that speaks to newer agents. YPN obviously has a youthful part to that and to their mission. So how do we do that without making it a circus?
So what if we not make them apply? I'm not trying to get into all that, but similar. Like I want to use this to encourage younger agents to stay in the business, and think bigger. So maybe we open up so many tickets to people when they put in we have a pool, right? And they say my volume, I did 5 deals, and maybe we look at it and say if they're under 30 and they've done 10 deals, whatever, we want that many people. And then we say, hey, you're over 50 million in volume, whatever it is, in Boston. We want you to come in there just because you're not a 30 under 30 doesn't mean you can't produce. So kind of being exclusive. So where we can piggyback off people we may not have known. I don't know.
Eric, we are charging for the event, right? For non-30s?
Correct.
Can you remind me, it's probably in that notes that you have, but what's the cost for the event?
It is not in the notes. We had talked about doing tiered cost based on when they apply so that we can, last minute if we have to add seats and that's going to impact cost, it's accounted for. I think we had said, and Brad, I think you threw out the numbers, but I think we had said 150 or something like that before April 1. And then anything after April 1 was 199 or $200. It was either that or 100 and 150. I can't remember where we ended up.
Yeah. And that'll help once we get space, we can kind of back it in.
So more real-time feedback. Sorry, guys, to interrupt. I apologize, Brad. So Rob is now saying, I spoke with one of the other 30s who expressed preference for 30s only. The exclusivity is part of the draw, but it's your event. Maybe pull the group again. So I don't disagree with what he's saying, but at the same time, you limit it to about 600 people. And so the odds of getting, 50, it's probably what would happen is we'd probably get 50 or 75 people, I would think, if we just make it exclusive to 30s.
It would make the space a hell of a lot easier to secure, but.
And so that's a question for everyone on the phone. Are you willing to pay $250, $300 to come to this thing? If we don't, I think we can knock out sponsorships, to be quite honest with you.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd be willing to pay that for one, but also to keep on that exclusivity. Maybe it is 30s and invites only, right? Is that because I know I was invited, right? Koki, how did y'all do it for DC? Wasn't it 30s and invites only?
Invite only. So we had people like you, and it was mainly YPN folks who we reached out to, up and coming realtors who we felt like should be tapped on the shoulder, and at the event. So
that's a good point, Koki. That may be a way of accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish, but have it be by invite. And then we're really gonna. I think one of the issues that Brad, Eric, and I are dealing with is that everybody says they're interested, and then all of a sudden, when it comes to paying for the event, people start to not to drop out. And so I think that's a good way of doing it is saying if you want to invite people, each person can invite up to 5. I don't know if we've got 60, that all of a sudden makes that list 300, and it could be your teammates. Like I might, depending on where our team is sitting in a couple of months, I might invite some of my teammates to the event, which aren't 30s, and some of them aren't even they're staff members, so they're not even active brokers.
I think on that note, just to get one word in here before all these brilliant minds keep talking, I think that the price sort of makes it exclusive too. So if you were to go around all the 30s and say, it's free for you, but it's like you said, $150, $200 for other people, you're going to get people who want to be there. And I think the 30s understand that that's also subsidizing the cost for the 30s that this event is intended to be for. So, it's one thing to keep it exclusive and keep it for that, but I think the price also serves the same way. We're not swinging open the door to everyone who's walking in. That sort of controls things as well.
Oh, so tell Rob for $6,000 sponsorship, we will keep it 30 under 30 only.
Right.
But yeah, so if we did 50 of the people that are going to be coming up in the magazine stuff, and then 30 and 30s, we're looking at 530 people. Say we get 15% of that. So, I mean, that's 80 people. So I like exclusivity. So maybe we do that. We say, if you come, you get 3, we have 3 spots for other people. Or one last kind of big idea guy is in the morning, we do the TED Talks. It's a half day open general session. And after that, we dumb it down and get really intimate with just the 30s.
Brad, I like that. I didn't even think about that you could segment the event where part of it is more speaking oriented and then the other part is more breakout session just with our alumni group. That's a really, really good idea.
Yeah, or you flip it the other way and do the 30s come in the night before, do 30 get together in the morning, and then open it to the public for like a lunch keynote, and then, the TED Talk style in the afternoon with a little networking event afterwards.
What's the likelihood on a Thursday in April that people can make it? Is it easier as a commercial realtor? I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but my job is 9 to 5 mostly.
Yeah, you don't work like 2 hours.
But what I was going to ask is a Thursday night at, if someone's doing an event that goes till 5 o'clock, are you going to get no one to attend because they're out on listing presentations or they're getting properties ready to go on the market? I mean, if we're going to have an open part of it that's local people, Eric, how do we do that? Do you want to do it in the morning or the afternoon? Sorry, I keep messing with you. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'm trying to unmute myself. He's trying to unmute me. No, for here, I mean, Thursdays are big broker tour days. So you're looking at stuff from like 11 to 1. But outside of that, if we have this on the calendar, people will work around it. I don't see it being a conflict, especially if it runs into the evening a little bit. There's a big component here is getting together with other realtors, be it at there's a seminar coming up on February 8th that is condo market specific, TED Talk kind of thing. So these types of events are happening here all the time. I can't speak for everyone else in other metro areas though.
All right. So I got it. I figured it out.
Brad's got
the
it.
night before, happy hour, just 30s. Next morning, we have breakouts, 30 under 30s, the specialized roundtable, kind of just get intimate. Lunchtime, we roll in the new grand opening to everybody. And we have a cocktail happy hour that evening for everyone wants to stay. So that way the general public gets to mingle with us. The sponsors are happy because they're getting in front of their own local people. And then if the 30s that aren't talking need to fly out, they don't have to stay for the TED Talk part.
Yep.
Sorry, Brad, I missed one part. So the morning would be breakouts, then you'd have lunch, and then what's after lunch?
Have open the doors to the YPNs, to whoever wants to come in and pay the ticket for the afternoon session of the 30 and 30 TED Talks. If Seth Price wants to throw in some money, I mean, I don't mind them doing it, but I don't want Jimmy and Seth to kind of overtake it all. have a keynote, and then have a happy hour on the spot that our sponsors get to be with their general people that they're going to get the most business out of. But yet those people can come ask us questions during the cocktail reception.
How can we get that agenda right there? Perfect. I think it's set. Anyone have any questions or?
The only thing I was going to throw in is that Seth is launching a book, and he mentioned that like it should be out at that point. So if we use Seth as a keynote, he could do a book signing during the networking event. We've done similar things up here with NAR. Like Josh Altman was the keynote, and he signed his book during the networking thing. So it caused people to stick around longer, at least locally. So that could be something that we think about too. And again, I don't want Seth and Jimmy to take over the whole thing. If Jimmy did want to talk, it would be more, from what I spoke to him about, it would be a TED Talk about utilizing social media in a new and different way, as opposed to, like, to facilitate engagement, as opposed to just, post your listings on Facebook or whatever.
Eric,
Who's
you bring
Jimmy?
up a great point. Harrison, hang on just for 1 second. I think that if there is a book coming up for him, I think that we want to play up on that, because that increases his motivation, his PR, and it does, I think, keep people there longer. So one other quick thing, Rob is giving me a hard time on the text, and then all of a sudden he's like, I just realized you're on the call right now. So I'm going to take a picture of our screen and everybody wait for Rob. All right. So go ahead, Harrison. Sorry about that.
Just asking who's Jimmy?
Jimmy Mackin and Chris Smith are the co-owners of Curator. Chris is a published author, and they do a ton with social media and internet marketing. So they have a unique perspective, and their main office is here in Boston. So I see Jimmy all the time and his staff up here. So it's an easy ask for me to say to him, hey, show up and talk for 25 minutes for the most part, as long as he's in town. Chris would be a speaking fee, and we don't want to get into that. So
One more step. What's Curator?
Curator is a marketing company that focuses solely on real estate. If you go to ericrollo.com, that's Curator's platform. All the sites basically look the same, and it's all focused on lead generation. My IDX sucks, but I get probably 25 to 30 leads a day.
But they've got a great office space too down in Boston, which I was at a couple weeks ago. So it's not big at all. So you would be forced to be intimate if it's a 30 under 30 networking group there, like the night before. Because I mean, it's like the size of my office, which is huge in Boston. So I said we hit him up for that.
Yeah.
Cool.
All in favor?
I'm down.
Kyle Kovacs, I'm going to pick on you, my man. I haven't heard you say anything, and I'd love for you just to contribute to the group a little bit here on what you're thinking, because I'm sure you've got an idea that we haven't thought about yet. We're trying to circle this around as best we can. So go ahead.
Sure. I like the can you guys hear me?
We hear you great.
Yeah, I like the idea of the TED style talks. Obviously like to get a lot of different, ideas put together, different topics. So one of the topics I'm most interested in is growing a team and, where to kind of start with that. But I think the biggest thing, as you guys were talking about, is having an action plan at the end of these talks, because so many times we go to talks and people just talk. And then at the end, you're like, okay, well, what the hell do I do now? So I like the idea of having the action plan laid out. Also having the topics, given to us up front. So somebody had proposed, I forget exactly who it was, but about having questions, for this person to kind of cover. Obviously, the easiest way to do that would be to, essentially know what the topics are going to be, and then submit our questions to that, speaker in regards to, what we want to have answered.
That's great feedback. I really like it. And Kyle, remind me which city you're in?
I'm in northern New Jersey, right? About 15 minutes outside Manhattan.
Great. Do they invite folks from New Jersey to Boston? Is that going to work all right, Eric?
Yeah, that'll be fine. Is he a Yankees fan or not?
I am a Yankees fan. We beat you a lot, beating us.
Oh, that's funny. So I remember picking this up after going to another event, non-realtor related, but they had made the point that their mission as a live event group was to make their topics both informational and inspirational. So not just do the inspiration piece, which I think a lot of people do, and that's like, what do we do with it? But also have that informational part of it where you can really apply something tactically and be able to implement it into your business. I tend to be more the inspirational type. So Brad, you're going to have to help us. And I think others will have to help us on how we do this in such a way that it's not cumbersome and it's not, a huge to do, because we're all busy. We're all running businesses, but how do we do that? How do we create a program that you can have takeaways? And I think Brandon Green, he has tentatively agreed to be the moderator. He does a really good job of keeping us on pace, as well as doing some takeaways right afterwards. So I think Brandon's good about that. But Brad, do you have any ideas? I feel like you're my tactical brother.
Yeah, I just say we find the topics, right? So obviously in the afternoon, if we're going to open it to the general session, we got to be really kind of broad. So buying investment property for yourself, like looking out for yourself, creating a team, how to start, or starting with video, or whatever those things are. I think we all just keep it to 5 points. Every single talk comes with 5 points. What are you trying to get across? What are the 5 steps? If we keep it to that, then the format should be pretty simple. We don't have to worry about, if you are creative, you don't have to go really down a rabbit trail. Or 5 lessons you learned while trying to do this. So I think that's the easiest way to do it. That gives you 4 minutes per part, and then you literally walk off stage, the next person walks on, and we keep rolling. So because you're right, you can overthink it and get lost, but we're trying to give them key takeaways to improve their business if they're interested in this topic.
So do you guys want to go through and like create a list of all the topics that should be covered at the event, and then from there we'll say, okay, this person should probably handle this person could do that, and then just figure out speakers from there?
Yeah,
that's a good point. I've got the agenda from last year, and I can find that on my blog real quick and drop that into the chat. So I'm going to look for that real quick while you guys are talking through that, because I think the topics, the speakers, and then obviously the exclusivity are going to be the things that people are really drawn towards. So hang on just a second. I'll go find it.
So I just got back from Inman last week. And so obviously I think somebody needs to talk about video, but like practical, not this is what I do, but how you should get started. We've got to find some 30 has to do virtual reality. That'll pull a big crowd. It's actually pretty neat. So I think that obviously people always want to have a team topic. And I think social media, and then maybe something about growing your business. So if you're an individual practitioner, taking it up a notch, probably want to figure that out. Hiring an assistant, maybe that's one we look at. So I'm trying to keep it broad enough, but specific enough that I think virtual reality will get you a big play into it. I'm going to talk at San Diego about 3D printing, but I don't think that has much to do with this.
I was just going to say, what about 3D printing?
We can, but I mean, it's fun, I guess, if you want to print Pokemon or something, but there's no real application yet.
So I had just been jotting down ideas, and I know Danielle Riley's expressed interest in coming, and she was just featured in Realtor magazine in an article about succession planning. And I think that's relevant to all ages in terms of whether it's me just trying to build a saleable book long-term, or, she came into it and she's acquiring her family's company. A lot of folks up here have talked, and I don't know if Sasha can make it, but there's a lot of people in my market who know of Sasha Farmer and would love to hear her speak. And I know that the last time I've probably got the most value out of Sasha talking about how she structures her day and her focus on prospecting. And I think that that's kind of bringing it back to basics in a way that could be helpful for a lot of folks. And then obviously some of the usual players, I had just written down ideas like Phil Becker. He does a ton with video, so he might be someone that we ask about that. Does anyone know anyone that does the VR stuff and the 3D and all that?
Quick response. Sasha cannot make it. Her grandfather died, and
no.
Memorial service is going to be in April. And so she's like, it's not going to work.
Okay.
Brad, I know that you do a lot of VR and stuff like that, but I also look at you as a fairly regimented and scheduled person. And so if that's a topic you want to tackle, I think the idea of doing doing succession planning, I think is really important for all of us. Mm-hmm. And that includes both a legacy piece, which I can talk about from a real estate investing standpoint, or Bo can talk about. Bo's phenomenal at that subject, so I don't want to necessarily take it if he wants to do that. But I think just how do you monetize yourself without yourself being involved in the business every single day is a thing that a lot of us are looking forward to.
Yeah, maybe it's called maybe how to step out of the everyday business or something like that. Okay. Yeah, I think we've got some, so let's look at it. We got 20-minute talks. We're probably got 4 hours? So that's
Yeah, I mean, I did quick math. I was like, if we do afternoon sessions at like capping it at 25, 30 minutes a person, you're just over 2 hours total. Plus you add in some breaks in between. So you end up at around 3 hours. So we could even add a sixth speaker or that keynote at the end of the day, depending on how this starts to break out and who's interested in actually coming to speak.
So how many topics does that give us?
Between 5 or 6 at least. That's only afternoon. I mean, that's not even talking about the 30 stuff in the morning.
Right. So I'd like to see the 30 stuff in the morning, two separate, like an hour long segments of maybe 6 tables with 6 different topics. So that way, let's say the 6 of us, or there's 7 of us on here, but let's say 6 of y'all decide to take a topic each. You're talking at that table with whatever people want to ask you about it, if virtual reality, team management, whatever. Then the next hour, you're not talking, so you can go find out things that you wanted to know. So if we broke it out that way, however many times we want to do that. So we can have a bunch of different topics in the morning that are very specific.
Anything on the listing side that you guys think would be valuable to speak on?
Yeah, I mean, we do a pre-list. Like I'm not talking the whole damn time, but think of people that do this. Like I send a pre-listing packet to all my people a day in advance. And when I get there, I take an iPad and I keep notes. So it's how kind of regiment your listing appointment and set that expectation. You could do something like that, or pre-listing email, like pre-listing expectations, or the whole listing in general. Do people do inspections, like outside the box stuff? So I think you're right on that. We need to find somebody that crushes it that way.
And then another topic is work-life balance. You know, we're all in this to grind and, you know, earn a living and create a future for, you know, for ourselves and for our families. But, you know, what are we doing to keep our sanity?
Koki, you're all over that, aren't you?
I think so, a little bit.
Well, no, I just remember from DC, like I took a lot out of that because I struggle a lot with work-life balance. And I heard what you were saying and I was like, man, like that's someone I want to model myself after. You know what I mean? So if you're interested, love to hear you speaking about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll be in the front row.
So with the process of working on my book that chronicles a lot of the thoughts and ideas of 30 under 30s, and most of you guys have been a part of that process, there are like 15 different topics that I can come up with that I've heard through the interviews. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, do you want me to highlight one of those topics and really hit it hard? Or do you want me to talk about the process of traveling around the country and talking to different 30s? And I mean, just traveling to DC and seeing Koki, and going to Seattle and seeing Kendra Todd, and going down to Houston and seeing Jared, and then going to Dallas and seeing Rogers. I mean, a lot of that is interesting. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, how do I make that not only just interesting to me because I enjoy it, but to everybody else?
Yeah, Mr. I've got a book coming out. I think you're the one that kind of took a tidbit from a lot of people. So yeah.
Well, but what do you want to hear though? I mean, if you're hearing about what go ahead, Koki. Sorry.
Yeah. One takeaway from all of your conversations, you know, from all those meetings with all of us, you know, across the country, what's one thing that you took from, you know, conversation with Rogers? You know, I think that'd be awesome to hear.
Basically the introduction to your book.
Awesome. No, that's perfect, because that's an easy 4 or 5 minutes, because I do that on every single phone call, and you guys know that I've interviewed. I give you an intro to the book, and then I could talk about the key takeaways and have a photo of each person on screen, and probably have some stats on what their productivity is. I think that's perfect. Thank you for that help. Hey, quick reminder, we're at about 5 minutes to the top of the hour. I always say this on our conference calls, but if you think about it, if you add up all of the dollar per hour that we earn in our real estate industry, this is an expensive phone call to be having. And I think we've been really productive with it. For the last 5 minutes, if anybody has anything else that they feel like they want to talk about, you know, go ahead and chime in, unmute yourselves. And then also in the chat, I dropped 3 different links there from last year's event. James Nellis's presentation, which I think that James is willing to be a participant again. And I think he does a good job of just stimulating the crowd to do a little bit of kind of an open mic type of conversation. And then Bo Mankiti, the interview that I did with him, and then also just what the agenda was. So those 3 links are in our chat.
Real quick, looking back at the Facebook group, so we had people want to talk about lead generation or lead conversion. You said prioritizing Alyssa Hellman in Raleigh. She said she's got some great stuff of taking control of your schedule. So there's one. Somebody said lead incubation and conversion, building a team. And then I know Brandon, I can get his last name wrong, Billington or whatever, Long and Foster in Maryland. He has like a moving company. He has contractors. So that might be a good one on how to branch out your business from real estate and incorporate other things like Shishelle, I think her name was, said something about insurance or something like that. So yeah, that might be somebody.
So you bring up an awesome point. Brandon implemented that after going to the 30 under 30 reunion in 2015 because he heard Jared Lofton talk about it. So Jared Lofton started a moving company like 8, 9, 10 years ago. And then Brandon immediately implemented that afterwards. And he said he's been blowing it up. He's been doing a good job with it. So I think that provides value to why people need to go to this event.
And I mean, I don't know if we want to get into that, but we can find somebody that's taken their team or their company or themselves and left, since this is not going to be like a Coldwell Banker event, they're not going to be pissed at us for talking about going boutique. But if you're thinking about that, taking your stuff, yeah, you just did it. Like what to look forward to or what the pitfalls are or why not to do it. Like one of the things I wrote is like, why never to get a partner? I learned that after breaking up with one of 10 years last year. That cost me a lot of money. So, a lot of people think they got to partner up. So we can look at some really insightful stuff, maybe for the 30s that could really get into the weeds.
I think that, once 30s are committed, that you can take a look at a lot of the people that are coming and say, what are you passionate about? Because that's a lot of the really cool things that we're talking about. Kyle's passionate about the stuff that he's done. It was Brandon that has all these people have their own niche that they've carved out what their passion is. And that's what really, if I were to go up there and talk about virtual reality for 15, 20 minutes, it's going to be dull, and I'm not all about it. But we have a lot of unique perspectives, and that's what attendees want to come for, is find out what I don't know, be able to sit next to Bo, which is completely out of my realm, and basically find out what I don't know and then bring that back to my hometown. So I think a lot of topics, in the same way that we're talking about topics and what would be interesting, we can also do the opposite direction, say who's coming, and then reach out to them and say, okay, what makes you different? Why would you? Because if I come, I would love to speak. And then it's just a matter of determining what am I passionate about? What would be interesting to hear about?
What if I made a Google form, or Kyle, if you want to do it, we'll put on there to all the 30s, fill it out. Or can you commit, like hard commit, other than like obviously death and diarrhea or something? And can you be there? Like that's the only excuse you get at my team meetings. Like somebody died or you have diarrhea. Like nobody wants you there. But other than that, like what do you want to talk about? What are you passionate about? And would you be willing to speak? And then we can start maybe compiling from there. Is that?
Yeah, that works.
And you also have it started with the Facebook group, right? So people have said, I'm interested. Now I think it's a matter of reaching out and following up on that interest and saying, okay, it's time to make a decision. Are you in or are you out? Because you're going to be added to the agenda if you're in.
Okay. So I think, Kyle, we got our agenda, right? We're going to do the network the night before, just 30s, hopefully. The morning of, hard, like get together, intimate 30 under 30s, then open up to like general TED Talks, and then hopefully a sponsorship happy hour after that. So then we just got to we can put that out, right? We have the dates. We just don't have a location other than Boston.
Yeah. And Eric, I think that feels most natural coming from you. Because I think you're the one who's planning the event. Do you want to put that out to our Facebook group, or do you want me to put that out? I don't care either way.
No, to be honest with you, between the sponsorships and trying to get the event, like that's enough for my plate right now. So I'd love it if you could take care of it.
I'm happy to do that. I am not shy with the Facebook group. I'm sure you guys all know that. So Rob had made a point that we had already figured out with Erica Christopher from Realtor Magazine, but he accentuated it. He said, definitely make sure that you invite the 50 finalists, because they will be so excited to go that they probably will go. And I think that's a strong part of our event. And I think that's something we need to make sure that we do. So they're going to be announced in, so the finalists are going to be announced in early March, and then the 30 are announced March 27th is what Rob said. So we'll have to figure out all those details, but I think that's a big way to create momentum.
Cool.
And I think part of our event should honor them, just even if they don't end up getting recognized, but just, I mean, the year that I applied and didn't get it, I was like, man, it's not going to work. And Harrison applied like 8 or 10 times or something like that, or whatever, 4 times. But I think that if you're a finalist but you don't make it, I think it's important to mention those folks. So, or especially someone that just made the trip out there.
Maybe you can have a contest or something between classes. Maybe not a contest, but something that makes it a little competitive between different classes that got it.
That'd be interesting. That'd be real interesting.
So Harrison, you got to talk on, applying for something like that, or what to do your first year, or, get some insight. I think that'd be,
sure.
or whoever wants to do it. I don't know what everybody's years, but I know just from talking.
Yeah. No, it was a year of a lot of growth and big stuff. And that's why I love what Koki was talking about now. It's figuring out the balance in life and surviving after winning it, killing yourself if you do it.
But Harrison, I remember on the call where we had all of the recent honorees, this is a year ago, you had a lot of good PR ideas, and you had I think you did a very good job from my perspective of making your award, and it's not supposed to be called an award, your recognition by Realtor magazine, really stick and really count that first year. I didn't do that great of a job, and I think I've done a better job as an alumni member. But I think that would be a really interesting talk if you're willing to do it. If you're not, tell us, because I don't want you to feel like you're painted into a talk that you don't want to do. But I felt like you had good ideas on that as a recent honoree.
No, definitely am. And between what I'm speaking on stage later next month, I've got to prepare some stuff for February. And then there's another webinar I'm doing to talk about it with NKW later in February too. So yeah, I'm definitely down.
Last moment to speak. If anybody has any other questions or wants to throw anything out, I think I've got everybody unmuted, but go ahead.
Not so much so a question, but anyone in this of the people on the call have any experience with subdivisions and flips?
With flipping subdivisions?
With going through the subdivision and also doing flips as well.
I have a couple subdivisions I work, or my people work, but I head them up. So yeah, just hit me up.
Okay.
And Wade Corbett too, who's the winner from this past year.
Okay.
And he's a builder too.
Yeah.
I've dealt with land development, if that's where you're going with it.
Yeah, I'm doing I just bought a property. I'm doing a subdivision right now. I'm building like a 2,800 square foot house. So I just wanted to hear some people, what their experiences were with it and whatnot.
Yeah, hit Derek up, obviously, and then I'd call Wade. He's in Raleigh. He builds his own product too, and he sells it. So he'd be a good spot.
Cool. Thank you.
Kyle, do you have their contact info for Wade and for?
I have them in the Facebook group, so I'll reach out to them. I think I'm friends with them on Facebook as well, so I'll shoot them messages.
Cool. That's good. That's a good question. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody for attending. Derek, Brad, Koki, Kyle, Harrison, Eric, and Seashell had to take off a little early, but we're truly better for having everybody involved. I hope to see all of you guys in Boston on the 27th and the 26th, which is the night before. And I'll put that out to the group here now with a couple of photos. Hopefully you guys don't mind. I've been taking a couple of screenshots. I'll pick one that's good. And Rob gave a big thumbs up in Chicago to our photo, especially with Brad giving him a single finger salute there. That was pretty good. So thanks everybody for joining us. I have recorded the call. What will happen is I'll have a video as well as an audio recording that I'll drop into my blog, and then I'll share that out to everybody. And probably one of the best parts of it is I have not been taking notes because I know that the recording's going. So we'll be listening back to this so that we know exactly what we said. And the event's going to be great. So thank you everybody for joining us, and have a productive day. I appreciate it.
Hey,
Thanks for putting it together, Kyle.
Hey, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Y'all rock on. Take care.
Take it easy.